Solo leveling is packed with tons of strong characters, so that's why we'll go over every single known ranked hunter in today's video. But first, if you didn't know, hunters are ranked using the E to S system, with E rank being the weakest and S rank being the strongest. But there's actually an even higher tier called the national level hunters, and these are the top 5 strongest hunters in the entire world, and they're so powerful that even regular S ranks can't compete. Oh, and did you know that only 0.001%, 1 in 100,000, of the world's population even awaken as hunters? And out of those, only 0.0002%, 1 in 2 million, end up being C rank or higher. Alright, let's start talking about the E rank hunters. And of course, we gotta start with the most famous one of all, the former weakest hunter of mankind, Sung Jinwoo. Now he's definitely not an E rank anymore, but before he got the system, Jinwoo was literally the weakest of the weak. He could barely handle the easiest monsters and almost died on every single raid he joined. But despite that, he kept showing up raid after raid. Because he had no choice, he needed money to support his sister and pay his mom's hospital bills. The only reason he even survived these raids was because Lee Joo-hee kept healing him every time he got injured. Still, he was basically useless in every single raid. The only other known E-rank hunter is Han Song-yi. We first saw her as part of Jinho's raid party as she had just dropped out of high school and hoped to make some quick cash as a hunter. But truth is, she wasn't strong at all. We literally never even once saw her fight. But during the Red Gate incident, after having a terrifying near-death experience, she realized the whole get-rich-as-a-hunter dream wasn't realistic for someone like her, so she went back to school to finish her education. Alright, moving on to the D-rank hunters, and first up is probably the most well-known D-rank in the entire series, Jinho. Jinho came from a super rich family, so while he wasn't all that strong, he had the absolute best gear money could buy. But here's the thing, Jinho didn't want to fight on the front lines. His dream was instead to become a guild master, working behind the scenes. So, after Jinwoo saved his life, Jinho asked him to help clear 19 more C-rank dungeons, since you need to clear 20 in total to qualify as a guild master, and Jinwoo had already taken down Beru. From there, Jinho became Jinwoo's best friend and his right-hand man. And hey, even though he's not the strongest, he's not totally useless. He was strong enough to shield an elderly couple from falling debris during the Tokyo crisis. Next up, we've got Kim Sang-shik. Kim was one of the hunters in the double dungeon with Jinwoo and actually showed he had some solid sword skills. But when things went south in that nightmare of a dungeon, he panicked and bailed, leaving Jinwoo and the others behind to save himself. So at first, he came off as a total coward, but later on, he genuinely regretted it and tried to make things right. Sadly, before he could, he was stabbed to death by Kang Tae-shik, a B-rank hunter we'll talk about later. Another D-rank hunter at the double dungeon was Park Byom-shik. Park was a solid fighter class hunter who used dual axes and could hold his own in normal raids. He was also a good friend of Kim's. But sadly, he wasn't as lucky as Kim, as Park was one of the 11 hunters who died during the Double Dungeon Massacre. Talking about hunters who lost their lives in the Double Dungeon, let's not forget Ju Jae-hwan. Right before that raid, Jae-hwan had just signed with a major guild and was seen as a hunter on the rise thanks to his ability, Enhanced Speed, as he could move at superhuman speeds and took a lot of pride in how fast he was. But unfortunately, he was still nowhere near fast enough to outrun the Statue of God, as the statue zapped him on the spot when he tried to make a break for the doors, burning him to ashes. The last known D-rank hunter we've got is Kang Jong-ho. Just like Kim Sang-shik, Jong-ho was one of the 6 survivors from the Double Dungeon. As a hunter, he was seen using a mace and later a two-handed warhammer, and while his class was never officially stated, he definitely came off as a tank with that brute strength. Sadly though, surviving the Double Dungeon didn't mean much in the long run, because during the Dungeon and Prisoners arc, Jong-ho was killed by Kang Tae-shik, just like Kim. Moving on to some stronger hunters, let's talk about the C ranks, and first up is the one and only Hwang Dong-suk. Now, yeah, Dong-suk was an arrogant, greedy scumbag, but to be fair, he was also a pretty solid C-rank tanker, as he could use enhanced power to buff his physical stats, making him even tougher and stronger. But all that strength couldn't save him. As the leader of a C-rank raid party, Dong-suk tricked both Jinwoo and Jinho and left them to die so he could keep all the loot for himself. Yeah, that was a huge mistake, as Jinwoo wiped out his entire squad, absolutely smashed Dong-suk into the ground, and then finished him off without breaking a sweat. Talking about Dong-suk's squad, let's get into his right-hand man, Cho Kyu-hwan. Just like the rest of the crew, Kyu-hwan was greedy and had no issue murdering weaker hunters if it meant making some quick cash. And to be fair, he wasn't useless. Q-won was actually a decent fire mage, and he even managed to knock out half of Jinwoo's health with a single fireball. But, unfortunately for him, that only made Jinwoo mad. As after Jinwoo got back on his feet, he took out this skilled mage like it was nothing, slicing him to pieces. Continuing with Dong-suk's squad, next up is Gu Juntae. Juntae was a C-rank hunter and probably a fighter type, but honestly, the only memorable thing about him is that he was the very first person Jinwoo ever killed, as Jinwoo straight up decapitated him with his dagger. Another member of Dong-suk's squad was Lee Chul-jin. After Juntae got taken out, Chul-jin tried to get revenge by attacking Jinwoo. Yeah, bad idea. Jinwoo stabbed him with his dagger, which triggered the weapon's bleed effect, and Chul-jin ended up bleeding out right there on the dungeon floor. Finally, not a member of Dong-suk's squad, we've got Go Myung-hwan. Go was a pretty weak C-rank hunter from the White Tiger Guild who ended up in the Red Gate incident. And because of his low rank, Kim Chul threw him into the weak group with Jinwoo, which of course turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to him, as Jinwoo carried the team and saved everyone, making Go one of the few survivors of the Red Gate incident. Another C-rank hunter who actually also survived the Red Gate incident was Yoon Ki-jung. Now, you actually won't see him in the anime as he was literally cut entirely. But in the manhwa, he was part of the group who got paired with Jinwoo because of his low rank. And after Jinwoo cleared the dungeon, Ki-jung was seen crying in relief as he finally made it out of the gate and back to the real world. Finally, everyone's favorite C-rank hunter, Song Chi-yul. Chi-yul was actually a beast for a C-rank. Not only could he cast powerful fire magic, but he was also a master swordsman thanks to his skills in Kumdo, basically modern Korean swordsmanship. And fun fact, he was actually even the one who taught Hae-In how to fight with a blade. He was also strong enough to go toe-to-toe with B-rank hunter Kang Tae-shik for a while. And that's exactly why he was put in charge of the squad during the double dungeon raid. Chi-yul was also one of the few survivors from that nightmare, even though he was willing to sacrifice himself for both Jinwoo and Juhee, but not just during the double dungeon, but also during the fight with Tae-shik. Also, after losing his arm during the double dungeon, he refused to get it healed, choosing instead to keep it as a reminder of his failure as a leader. Alright, leaving the C ranks behind and moving on to the B rank hunters, we've got to start with Kang Tae-shik. Tae-shik was a B rank assassin and part of the hunters' surveillance team, meaning his job was to hunt down rogue hunters. But yeah, he also had a side job, being a hitman for hire. So this dude was a literal psycho. As a hunter, he was insanely fast, strong enough to go toe-to-toe with Jinwoo at the time, and even resisted the paralyze and bleed effects of Kasaka's Venom Fang. He could also use stealth, making himself invisible to sneak up and kill his targets, just like he tried to do with Jinwoo. However, during their fight, Jinwoo eventually overpowered him and landed a clean stab to the chest. But Tae-shik actually didn't die bitter or angry, he accepted his defeat, and with his last breath, fully acknowledged Jinwoo's strength. Now let's talk about Lee Juhee. Juhee was a pretty solid B-rank healer who could even use buff magic, like when she gave Jinwoo a haste boost during his fight with Tae-shik. She was also one of Jinwoo's closest friends, kind-hearted, caring, and always looking out for him during raids. And like I said, she's literally the reason he's even alive right now. But after the trauma of the double dungeon and everything that happened in the Dungeon and Prisoners arc, she decided to retire from hunting and went back home to live a more peaceful life. Still, even though she's literally got PTSD, during the 4th Jeju Island raid she stepped up and helped out. The last known B-rank hunter is Park Hee-jin. Hee-jin is a mage-type hunter who first showed up during the Red Gate incident, and right away she knew Jinwoo was built different. The second he caught that Ice Elf's arrow mid-air, she instantly knew he was at least an A rank on the spot. And even though she pops up a few more times throughout the series, we actually never see her in a real fight. Still, she's a fan favorite, so it's always cool whenever she shows up. Alright, let's get into the A-rank hunters. And who better to start with other than Woo Jinchul? Jinchul is one of the top A-rank hunters in Korea, and honestly, he's borderline S-rank. We saw just how strong he was when he stepped in and shut down a fight between the S-ranks Baek Yoonho and Hwang Dong-soo. Sure, they held back, but the fact that Jinchul could stand between them without flinching says a lot. That said, Jinchul usually isn't on the front lines. He's the chief inspector of the Hunters Association's surveillance team, which means his job is more about keeping tabs on other hunters, and yeah, that can get intense. Like, this is before inspecting Jinwoo's raid, and this is after. Still, he's a genuinely good guy, and he and Jinwoo have a lot of mutual respect, and he's also one of the few people Jinwoo actually trusts. However, an A-rank hunter Jinwoo definitely didn't respect was Kim Chul. Kim was a tanker-type hunter and the leader of the White Tiger Guild's raid squad during the Red Gate incident. But this guy was incredibly arrogant, and he looked down on anyone who ranked lower than him. He also had no problem leaving weaker hunters behind to die, literally calling them dead weight. Now, to be fair, Kim was strong. He went through special training, was set to join the White Tiger Guild's elite team, and even soloed a group of ice bears with ease, swinging around a shield the size of a door. Still, all that strength didn't mean much when he tried to fight Jinwoo, who first literally just slapped him into the ground, and then eventually took his life. Next up, we've got Sun Ki-hoon. Ki-hoon was a solid tanker and the leader of Strike Squad B from the Hunters Guild. Unlike the cocky and selfish Kim Chul, Ki-hoon was actually humble, level-headed, and genuinely looked out for his team. And during the Hunters Guild arc, he showed off some serious durability, taking a direct hit from a high orc that shattered his shield, and even surviving after being yeeted up and down by Kargalgan. So yeah, he didn't get to flex his full strength since the enemies were way too strong, but he easily earned Jinwoo's respect. Now, let's continue with the Hunters Guild Strike Squad B and talk about Han Semi. Semi wasn't just kind and chill, she was actually one of the strongest healers in Korea. And during the Hunters Guild arc, she proved that support hunters are just as clutch as the frontliners. As when one of her teammates got their arm completely severed by a high orc, Semi didn't panic. She instantly just regenerated the entire thing. Yeah, just goes to show how crazy good she was at healing and how vital support hunters are in high-level raids. The next member of Strike Squad B is Jinah, a serious, no-nonsense mage who doesn't mess around. Her skills are so good that even Choi Jong-In, the top mage in Korea, recognizes her talent. She uses telekinesis to control and launch objects, blasting enemies from a distance like it's nothing. And Jinah's telekinesis is strong enough to hold a high orc in place, which definitely proves she's way more powerful than your average mage. The other mage from Strike Squad B is Lee Bora. Just like Jinah, Bora is a seriously strong mage, and her specialty is summoning magic. She could summon giant worm-like beasts, strong enough to hold down a high orc, which is no small feat. But Bora wasn't just strong, she had crazy good senses too. She could instantly tell that Kargalgan was way out of their league, and she also sensed Jinwoo lurking in stealth when he was aura farming. Now, one of the strongest hunters in Strike Squad B is none other than Seo Ji-woo. Seo is a fighter-class hunter who, despite her crazy strength, actually struggles with self-confidence. But don't get it twisted, she loves to fight. Seo is a hand-to-hand combat beast, using her super speed and brute force to completely overwhelm her enemies. She even landed a punch so hard it left a massive hole in a high orc, and she's also incredibly tough, tanking hits that would have dropped most hunters. Alright, moving on from Strike Squad B, let's talk about Lee Min-sung. Min-sung is an A-rank hunter who also happens to be a famous Korean actor. As a hunter, he was strong enough to smash a table with one hand, and on top of that, he was super popular with the public. He always came off as humble and kind on camera, but behind the scenes, yeah, Min-sung was actually arrogant and selfish, and he only became a hunter to dodge military service. So, he joined the Field Guild, and he even showed up to the Jeju Island raid just for publicity points. But the second things got real, he froze up in fear and totally panicked. So, he's just all talk. Now onto an actual strong A-rank hunter, let's talk about Park Jong-soo. Jong-soo is the guild master of the Knights Guild and a very strong tank. Like, he once blocked an attack from a twin-headed ogre like it was nothing, and he's also surprisingly fast as he dodged Hanekawa's attacks in their sparring match like it was no big deal. But what makes him stand out is his light blue energy shield that he can summon. It's huge, durable, and makes him a seriously powerful frontline fighter in any raid. Talking about Jong-soo, we gotta talk about his right-hand man, Young Yoon-tae. Yoon-tae's the vice guild master of the Knights Guild, and he's crazy loyal to his boss Jong-soo. Like, this guy is always hyping Jong-soo up. For example, during that sparring match with Hanekawa, Yoon-tae just kept going on about how amazing Jong-soo was. But don't get it twisted. Yoon-tae's no slouch in combat. He's a solid swordsman, able to blind a twin-headed ogre with a single swing, and even land a clean hit before the thing could react. Since we mentioned Hanekawa, let's talk about her next. Hanekawa is a fighter-type hunter from the Draw Sword Guild, and she mainly relies on speed to overwhelm her opponents. On top of that, she also works as a translator for the Japanese Hunters Association. That said, Hanekawa's got a bit of an ego and tends to look down on weaker hunters, like Park Jong-soo compared to Goto Ryuji. But that cockiness backfired, as during their sparring match, Hanekawa got wrecked by Jong-soo. Mostly because she lacks real experience fighting other hunters. Now we've got Yoo Soo-hyun. Soo-hyun's not just a super famous Korean actress and model, she's also Jinho's cousin. And yep, she's part of Jinwoo's Ajin Guild too. As after getting totally rizzed by Jinwoo, she agreed to join the guild as their non-hunter member, since she's mainly focused on her acting career anyway. But just because she's not out there fighting in dungeons doesn't mean she's weak. Soo-hyun's a solid range-type hunter who fights with a rifle, so when she's on the battlefield, she absolutely knows how to handle herself. The last known A-rank hunter is Young Yerim. Yerim is a healer from the Knights Guild, but she's not just about healing. Yerim can also use a skill called Sacred Shield, which lets her summon a big golden magical shield that's tough enough to block serious attacks. Finally, getting into the insanely powerful S-rank hunters, let's start with Baek Yoonho. Yoonho's the guild master of the White Tiger Guild, and while he's a fighter-type hunter, his real specialty is transformation magic, because when he goes all in, he transforms into a tiger-like beast. White fur, sharp claws, glowing eyes, and terrifying fangs. And in this form, his strength and speed skyrocket. However, if he doesn't want to go full beast mode, no problem, Yoonho can partially transform, choosing to upgrade just certain parts of his body, depending on the fight. Moving on, let's talk about Choi Jong-In. Choi is not just the guildmaster of the Hunters Guild, but he's also known as the Ultimate Hunter, and once you see his fire magic, it's pretty clear why. Choi's flames are crazy powerful. He can literally wipe out entire battlefields in seconds. Like, just look at the Jeju Island raid. He's out there vaporizing swarms of ants like it's nothing. He's got some awesome moves too, like Flame Dragon, where he forms a massive fire dragon that torches everything in its path, and Flame Prison, a huge net of flames that works for both attack and defense. So Choi is hands down the strongest mage-type hunter in Korea, and he's implied to be on par with Yoonho in overall strength. Continuing with the range-based hunters, we've got Lim Tae-gyu, the guild master of the Fiend Guild and an absolute beast with a bow. This guy is a ridiculously skilled archer, sniping enemies with pinpoint accuracy and hitting their weak spots like it's nothing. But what really makes him stand out is that he can instantly create magic arrows from his hands. And these things aren't just for show, they're strong enough to tear through the Ant Queen's skin and one-shot ants. So yeah, Tae-gyu is no joke. Next up, we've got Ma Dong-wook. Dong-wook's the guild master of the Fame Guild and an absolute unit. And he isn't just insanely strong. His durability is wild. Like, he can take near-fatal hits, keep standing, and continue to fight back. Just look how he refused to back down even against the Ant King. But what really makes him stand out is his gigantification ability. He can double in size during battle. Okay, maybe it's not that crazy, but it still gives him a big boost in strength and toughness, making him a super reliable frontline tank in any raid. Another super reliable S-rank hunter was Min Byung-gyu. He wasn't just a healer, Byung-gyu also had the combat power of an A rank. But yeah, when it came to healing, he was a literal miracle worker. He instantly saved both Yoonho and Ma Dong-wook after they were poisoned by the Ant Queen, and he even regrew Dong-wook's arms in an instant. He could also use buff magic to boost the team's stats, and he had a disguise ability that basically made him invisible so he could heal from the shadows. The only downside is that he couldn't move while using it, which made him an easy target if anyone managed to sense him. And that's exactly what happened during the 4th Jeju Island raid. The Ant King tracked him down and killed him. The saddest part is that Byung-gyu didn't even want to be a hunter anymore. He had already retired wanting to become a history teacher, but came back one last time to help. Talking about why Min Byung-gyu didn't want to be a hunter anymore, we gotta bring up Yoon-sok. Yoon-sok was one of Byung-gyu's closest friends, along with Yoonho. He was a mage-type hunter who used lightning magic and could hit multiple enemies at once with wide-range spells. He even used dual claws for close combat, so yeah, the guy was strong. But during the 3rd Jeju Island raid, he was completely overrun by the ants and didn't make it out. And his death hit Byung-gyu hard, and it's one of the main reasons he stepped away from being a hunter altogether. Moving on, we've got everyone's favorite, Hae-In. Cha is the Vice Guild Master of the Hunters Guild, but let's be honest, she's way stronger than Choi Jong-in. Don't just take my word for it though, even Goto Ryuji, the strongest hunter in Japan, said she could give his top hunters a serious challenge. And during the Jeju Island raid, the Ant King himself saw her as the biggest threat and went after her first, which says a lot. Cha's got light-speed swordsmanship, slicing through enemies with pinpoint precision. And her ultimate move, Sword Dance, cranks her attack speed to crazy levels, making her fight like she's literally dancing through the battlefield. So, she's hands down one of the strongest S-ranks out there. Her only real weakness is that she's got a crazy sensitivity to mana, which makes all hunters and monsters reek to her except for Jinwoo. Someone even stronger than Chae is none other than Sung Il-hwan, Jinwoo's dad. Back when magic beasts first appeared, Il-hwan gave up his career as a firefighter to become a hunter, and he quickly became one of Korea's very first S ranks. But 10 years before the main story starts, he got trapped in a dungeon during a raid and was presumed dead. But instead of dying, he was actually saved by the rulers, who gave him their power and told him to assassinate the new Shadow Monarch. The twist? Well, that new Shadow Monarch turned out to be his own son, Jinwoo. But thankfully, the rulers had a change of heart and ended up siding with Jinwoo, as Il-hwan couldn't go through with it. Now, let's talk about his strength, because this man was insane. First, he absolutely clowned Hwang Dong-soo, who's already a super strong S rank. Then, he literally fought both the Beast Monarch and the Frost Monarch at the same time. And yeah, he held them off. So yeah, Il-hwan wasn't just strong, he was probably the second strongest hunter in the world, right behind his son. Moving on, we've got Gunhee. Most people know him as the chairman of the Korean Hunters Association, but back in the day, he was an absolute beast. Gunhee was actually a vessel for one of the rulers, just like Il-hwan, and in his prime, he was one of the strongest hunters in the world. Sadly, because of his old age, his body just couldn't keep up anymore, and he was forced to retire early. Alright, now to the one you've all been waiting for, and the last Korean S rank, Sung Jinwoo. Jinwoo went from being the weakest hunter of mankind to the strongest being in existence, literally. As after he got the system during the double dungeon, Jinwoo got the ability to continue to level up, meaning Jinwoo's power had no limit. He could become infinitely stronger. And because of that, Jinwoo eventually became known as humanity's greatest hunter. He also became the new Shadow Monarch, inheriting the position from Ashborn, who chose Jinwoo as his successor, which meant his power became even greater. But what was Jinwoo's goal with all of this power? Well, at first, he only wanted to cure his mother from her eternal slumber. So after curing her, he was thinking about retiring from being a hunter to live a quiet and happy life with her and Jinah. But yeah, that didn't last long, as Jinwoo had to save the Korean S ranks from the Ant King. And in doing so, he actually found a new purpose: to save everyone. So, although Jinwoo of course loves the thrill of battle, Jinwoo only fights to protect the people that he loves and to protect the innocent people of the world. Now, getting out of Korea, let's talk about the Japanese S-rank hunters, starting with none other than Goto Ryuji. Goto was Japan's strongest hunter and the guildmaster of the Draw Sword Guild. So, this guy was an absolute beast. Crazy fast, insanely strong, and during his sparring match with Jinwoo, he actually managed to cut Jinwoo's skin with his bare hands. And honestly, there's even a case to be made that Goto might have been the strongest human, not monarch or vessel, in the entire series. But sadly, he didn't live up to the hype, as when he finally stepped into a real battle during the Jeju Island raid, the Ant King two-shot at him like it was nothing. So yeah, big L. Anyway, let's keep it going with the other Japanese S-rank hunters from the 4th Jeju Island raid, starting with Akari Shimizu. Akari was a powerful healer, although we never actually got to see her use her powers. Why? Well, because she straight up refused to heal anyone unless they paid her first. Yeah, she wasn't exactly a team player. She also had a little crush on her guildmate Kenzo, but sadly, she never got the chance to tell him as she lost her head during the raid, literally. Talking about Kenzo, he's up next. Kenzo was a fighter-type S-rank hunter who absolutely lived for battle. Even Goto recognized him as one of Japan's strongest. He was a total brute with insane physical strength, and he easily dominated Dongwook and Yoonho in sparring matches. And during the 4th Jeju Island raid, he went wild, slaughtering hundreds of ants while barely taking a scratch. But sadly, just like Akari, he literally lost his head to the Ant King before even throwing a punch. Alongside Akari and Kenzo, we also had Tatsumi Fujishima. Tatsumi was a chill and confident guy, someone who clearly trusted his guildmates and deeply cared about them. He was definitely a strong hunter. We even saw him carrying a sword at Jeju Island, slicing the ants with ease. But when trying to chase down the Ant King to take revenge for Kenzo and Akari, he got one shot, just like the others. Next up, we've got Chae. Just like Kenzo, Goto considered Chae one of Japan's strongest S-rank hunters. He was a mage who specialized in ice magic, using it to freeze enemies in an instant or create massive ice walls for defense, like when he tried to block an attack from the Ant King. But yeah, the Ant King still one-shot him like it was nothing. Also, fun fact, Chae has an enhanced sense of mana, just like Chae, but way worse. It's actually so bad that he has to wear a mask during raids, or he'll get sick. We literally see him throwing up just from sensing the Ant King's mana. through the mask. Moving on, we've got Ippei Izawa, one of the strongest assassins in the entire world. And man, I wish we got to see how broken this guy really was, but nope, we never actually see him fight. Why? Well, because just like the others, he got one-shot by the Ant King. So instead, let's talk about Mari Ishida. She might not look like it, but Ishida was a true damage dealer and part of Japan's S-rank squad. That said, just like Ippei, we never actually get to see her in action. And yeah, you guessed it, she also got one shot by the Ant King before she even had the chance to fight, taken out instantly while grouped up with Goto and Hoshino. Talking about Minoru Hoshino, he's up next. Hoshino was one of the Japanese S-rank hunters who actually survived the whole Jeju Island mess. As a fighter-type hunter, even Goto recognized him as one of the strongest, and we clearly saw his strength when he manhandled Taegyu, slamming him into a wall. On top of his strength, the guy was crazy fast, dodging Lim's magical arrows at close range like it was nothing. So, after surviving Jeju Island, he kept going strong as a hunter and continued working with the Draw Sword Guild. Continuing with the Japanese S-ranks who survived the 4th Jeju Island raid, next up is Kanai Tawada. Kanai's a serious and no-nonsense type who really cares about her team. She's a solid fighter-type hunter, but during her sparring match with Cha, she got totally outpaced and lost thanks to Cha's insane speed. But just like Hoshino, Kanai kept doing her thing as a hunter and stayed active with the Draw Sword Guild. Now to the last surviving Japanese S-rank from the Jeju Island raid, Atsushi Kumamoto. At first glance, this guy seems like a total coward. He freaks out easily, even when he's not in real danger, and in battle, he tends to go after the weakest enemy, usually from behind. But yeah, all of that changes when he goes berserk, because whenever Kumamoto takes damage, he enters a frenzied state and just loses it. We saw this firsthand when Cha accidentally punched him in the face, as he then punched a massive hole in the gym floor and was moving so fast he almost landed a hit on Cha. And yeah, he absolutely would have if Jinwoo hadn't stepped in to block him. Anyway, in his berserk state, he's easily one of the strongest S-rank hunters out there. Now, there's actually one more Japanese S-rank hunter we need to talk about, Reiji Sugimoto. Reiji became the guild master of the Draw Sword Guild after Goto Ryuji's death, and during the 4th Jeju Island raid, he was stationed on one of the battleships, making sure everything ran smoothly. Reiji is a smart and strategic guy who usually isn't on the battlefield, as his brain is his biggest asset, usually instead playing a very important role behind the scenes. Leaving the Japanese S-ranks behind, let's talk about Yuri Orlov. Orlov was a Russian mage-type hunter who specialized in barrier magic, and yeah, these barrier spells were insanely powerful. He once restrained both Hoshino and Kanai with zero effort, and he even once created a massive barrier that could fully seal off an S-rank gate and keep it self-sustained. But, powers aside, Orlov is arrogant, always drunk, and a total jerk. So although he's one of the strongest S-rank hunters, he's definitely not a good guy. But hey, he's still way better than this next guy, Hwang Dong-soo. Dong-soo was a Korean S-rank hunter who moved to the US and joined the Scavenger Guild, and yep, he's the younger brother of Hwang Dong-suk. And just like his brother, he was an absolute murderous meathead with no respect for human life at all. As a hunter though, Dong-soo was all about brute strength, super tanky, and hit like a truck. So he was honestly one of the strongest S-ranks in the world. But once he found out Jinwoo had killed his brother Dong-suk, he completely lost it and became obsessed with revenge. So his life's mission literally became to kill Jinwoo. And well, it didn't even stop after getting absolutely wrecked by Jinwoo's dad. So when they finally faced off, yeah, Jinwoo straight up demolished him. He didn't even have a chance. Moving on, we've got Jay Mills, the strongest hunter in Canada and ranked 17th in the world. While it's never officially confirmed, he was probably a tank, since he wore heavy armor during the raid against Antares, the Monarch of Destruction. Just like these other two, Jay thought he was untouchable, had zero respect, and literally called himself the King. So again, another strong but overconfident and stupid S-rank. Now let's talk about Lennart Nierman. Unlike Jay, Lennart's actually super polite and patient, even though he's the strongest hunter in Germany and ranked 12th in the entire world. So yeah, this guy is no joke. Lennart stands out as he has an ability called Charge, which lets him summon these glowing teal gauntlets on his arms that let him fire off massive energy blasts. And they're also strong enough to blind and disorient monsters like the beast monarch Rakan, and considering how insane Rakan's power is, that's wild. Oh, and Lennart was also the only one who could actually see Jinwoo's entire shadow army hiding inside his shadow, but yeah, it freaked him out so bad. But honestly, I get it. The final S-rank hunter we gotta talk about is Jonas. Jonas was the strongest hunter in Brazil, and he ranked 6th in the world. He was also a vessel of a ruler, which means he was crazy strong. Unfortunately, we never actually got to see him in action, as although he had an insane fight, it happened entirely off-screen, which is pretty sad, honestly. Now finally, we've made it to the national level hunters, the 5 absolute strongest hunters of the solo leveling world. And first up, we gotta talk about the strongest of them all, Thomas Andre. Thomas was an absolute unit, literally known as the Goliath. And he was the strongest hunter in America and ranked number 1 in the entire world. And with his signature move, Reinforcement, where he covers himself in golden armor, he cranks his already ridiculous defense and attack up to god tier levels. The guy was so tough that Jinwoo literally bruised his hands just from punching him. And even though he had a cocky attitude, Thomas wasn't a bad guy. Like after he fought Jinwoo, he had nothing but respect for him. And from that moment on, Thomas became one of Jinwoo's strongest allies, showing time and time again why he's one of the strongest in the world. Next up, we've got Liu Zhigang. Zhigang is China's strongest hunter and ranked 2nd in the world. He's a master swordsman with insane speed, and we literally see him slice a giant into pieces like it's nothing, and his signature move, Energy Slash, lets him fire off massive waves of energy just by swinging his sword, easily wiping out an entire swarm of flying ants from Jeju Island. Unlike some arrogant hunters, Zhigang was humble and respected true strength. As after seeing Jinwoo's strength when he fought Thomas, Zhigang straight up said that Jinwoo was worlds above him in strength, and anyone who disagreed was a fool. And even though we don't see him in many fights, he's one of the most dangerous hunters in the world. Now, let's talk about Christopher Reed. Reed was the 2nd strongest hunter in America and ranked 3rd in the entire world. His ability Spiritual Body Manifestation let him transform himself into a flaming one-eyed monster, and his fire was so intense it took 14 S-rank hunters just to put it out. I mean, just look at him. Terrifying. However, just like Zhigang, we don't see Reed all that much in the series, but still, he's one of the strongest in the world. And finally, we've got Siddharth Bachchan. But yeah, we literally don't even know what this guy looks like. However, we do know a few things. For example, he is the strongest hunter in India and ranked 4th in the entire world. On top of that, Siddharth has a bit of a savior complex. He is the type to jump in and protect people, even if they didn't ask for help. Now, I know I said there was 5 national level hunters, but we literally know nothing about the 5th one, which is why he's not included. Also, I know there are a ton more hunters in the series, like this tank, this assassin, and many more. But as we don't know their ranks, name, or anything, they aren't included. And there you guys have it. That was every single known hunter in solo leveling. Who is your favorite hunter? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and watch this video next.